Greetings, and welcome back to Megan Writes. So, my story has significantly changed. Last time I checked in on my vlog, I was at 5,000 words into my first draft. Since then, I wrote up to the attempts to solve the major conflict I had. I had written a tentative ending just so I knew where I was going to from that point. And then I started to try to write the attempts they were going to make to solve that conflict, and it just wasn't working. Nothing I came up with made any sense, and I was like working through it, and I realized that the way the story is now just didn't make any sense. It was too complicated, and so I've decided to take it and just rip it apart and put it back together differently, because it was too many different conflicts and too much going on that the essence of the story was kind of lost. Once I realized that the story had to change, I sort of sat with that decision for a little bit and kind of worked out other ways I could restructure the story to really capture the essence of what I wanted to tell. And I worked out a couple different things, but I finally boiled it down to what the essence of the story was, which was the love story between Nilsen and Brighton. I changed it up a bit. Instead of Nilsen owning his own bookshop, not bookshop. See, I keep doing this because it's based on, I keep calling it a bookshop instead of a library, because it was, since this came from the original idea from my Good Omens fan fiction, I keep thinking of it as Aziraphale's bookshop when it was a personal library. I realized in the past vlogs I didn't actually explain that. I said that Nilsen was running the library, but I didn't explain that like it was his personal collection and he was renting the the house it was in. It didn't make any sense, and the major conflict I added to the end was that they had to save the library, or the person he was renting from was going to sell the place and they were trying to save it. It was too complicated, and I realized that shouldn't be the major conflict of the book. It needed to be Nilsen and Brighton getting together. And so I went, okay, taking all that nonsense and ripping it out. So it just wasn't working the way it was because there was too many other distracting things, and I realized I was actually getting them together too soon and then focusing on the library. It's that's not what the story is about. The story is not about the library, it's about them. So I went back in and tried to fix it up, and I think I got a better sense. So now the basic theme, the boiled down, this is what the story is about, is that they need to talk to each other about the relationship, but they're too scared that, if they say anything, they'll lose what they do have, trying to pursue something more, but that's really what they both want. And in a way to sort of avoid this but keep the theme, the subplot is that they're trying to get another couple together. And yes, this does kind of follow the plot of season 2 of Good Omens. I realized, I'm okay, that's the inspiration we're taking, is season 2 episode 5, where Aziraphale and Crowley are trying to get Nina and Maggie together. So that's kind of the essence of the story, and I thought that was a lot more fun and silly and a lot more simplified down, instead of the Nilsen owning his own library and trying to keep the building, and Brighton having issues with their family and being sent away, and it was just what is happening in the story? I realized it was getting very complicated and I wasn't enjoying it. So we're changing it up. So it is that the tension is the fact that they need to talk to each other about their relationship, and the fact that they're both in love. So that's the new conflict. So actually, part of what helped me with changing up my novel was I took out from the library book called Save the Cat Writes a Novel, which is a novel by Blake Snyder. He also wrote the Save the Cat, which was how to find the plot for movies, and then Writes a Novel is that same kind of plot, but for novels. And there's a lot of good descriptions in there, and I'll actually do a whole separate video on what I learned from Save the Cat Writes a Novel, and all the different plot points. But yeah, so now that I've simplified down the story idea, I think I've gotten closer to my original idea for the vibe I wanted, which I got this from, I watched another video, YouTube video on, how to figure out your genre. So it's like, a lot of times it's kind of like this meets that, kind of like books or authors. So my idea for a vibe would be Terry Pratchett meets Emily Henry. So like sassy wit, but romance. And I think one of the other things I definitely want to take from Pratchett's style of writing is the sort of witty footnotes that he always adds in. I think that's going to be part of the novel. I'll have to work out how to add that in, but I think that would be fun. I might figure out an exercise to kind of work on doing footnotes, because I think that would be fun. So yeah, so now instead of Nelson owning a library and Brighton being a rare goods seller, I don't know. They roommates, they work at the same library, and just sort of the contrast of they're so close, but they just won't talk about their feelings, so they're not technically in a relationship, and sort of that conflict. And then sort of the B plot to sort of emphasize that is them focusing on the other couple to get together. I've changed P.G. Nelson's name is now Nathaniel or Nate Pearson, because I realized I had both him and Brighton going by their last names, and I was just like, that was too much. Like, they both had the same quirk. Like, I just didn't like that I was doing that, and I had originally done the P.G. Nelson thing as sort of an homage to the A.Z. Fell, but it wasn't working for me, so I like him being Nate now rather than Nilsson. I don't know. But I thought, like, Nathaniel was still, like, an old-timey kind of name and fit him better. Just fit him better than just calling him Nilsson. I didn't even really like the last name Nilsson, but I was trying to, I don't know. I just didn't like it so much, so. So now it's Nate and Brighton. And Brighton is going by their last name. Read the book to find out what their first name is. And I'm keeping Emma in the story, but I'm aging her up to 25, and she's now an assistant librarian. Nate is a full librarian. Brighton is an IT technician at the library, so they both work at the library. They're living together. Like I said, it's just them being so close but not talking about their feelings. And then projecting it onto another couple, which actually Emma is one. It's Emma and then another guy who starts working at the library, and Nate decides, we need to set her up with this person because she can't find love, and kind of sort of the irony of why are you setting someone up when you can't figure out your own love life, kind of a thing. So that was more the essence of the story, and I think it's gonna work a lot better now. And even though I'm not really keeping anything from the original version, again, I'm keeping the characters. I might pull some dialogue, or it's gonna be hard because, again, they're not in the same jobs. They don't have the same background exactly, or we're not gonna touch on it as much. I was kind of annoyed with my making Brighton's issue with their family so big, because the idea was that, if you haven't noticed by now, I keep using they for their pronouns because Brighton is they, them, and that was going to be some of the issue with their family, was that they didn't accept Brighton for who they were. But I thought it was making it too much central to the plot. That's who they are. We're not going to make it a thing that Brighton is they, them. It was getting too much. Yeah, it was making it too weird. And I was like, no, that's who they are. So yeah, so even though I'm changing it from the original, I might take some things from there. But even if I don't, it was still a good journey. It still got me to where I am now. So I'm not concerned with, like, losing that bit of writing. It was still good writing. It was, at the very least, it was a good writing exercise, and now I've got the new plot. I think it feels a lot better and a lot more fun. So other things I focused on is sort of focused in on, like, okay, what do we need for the story? Is I worked out the flaws, what Nate and Brighton's flaws are that we need to address by the end of the story. Because you'll hear in my Save the Cat Writes a Novel video how that's part of, like, what drives the story. Because part of the heart of a story is a character arc, so we need flaws at the beginning that get resolved at the end. So the flaws I'm giving them is Nate is oblivious and a bit bossy without realizing it, is sort of oblivious in his bossiness, and then Brighton is self-deprecating and overly accommodating. So because Brighton's accommodating Nate's bossiness, they just end up doing everything that Nate wants. But Nate doesn't realize he's doing that, and that's part of the conflict, and that's going to be addressed at the end, so it should be fun. And like I said, the subplot is them working together to get Emma and this other guy together, and I'm going to use that to poke some fun at some of the silly rom-com tropes. Like, one of the things I grew up with in like the 90s rom-com movies was that makeover for the nerd. She takes her glasses off and oh look, she's gorgeous now. Like that kind of like ridiculousness and sort of poking fun at that. Like, this is not how actual romance and relationships go, and all that kind of thing. So, and with them focusing on the other couple, it's going to reflect the fact that they're not talking about their own relationship, and it's going to, the B plot is going to emphasize the main story, and it should be good. I'm really excited that I've really focused in, because I was having trouble with the original version, and I thought it was just like, oh, I'm struggling to get things written, and I'm like, no, it should be fun, and I should want to write. If I'm going to write something, it should be something I want to read, and I was like struggling with getting it to a place where it made sense and worked, and this feels a lot more the essence of the story and where it should be and how it should go. So a lot more rom-com, romance novel fun. So I'll be writing that. I've got the basic plot written out, obviously, to be able to describe it to you. And I'll just start writing that, and once I've got the first draft all done, then I'll make another video about my editing process, like I was going to do with the other one, but again, we're ripping it apart and reassembling it, so we gotta rewrite it. And so once I'm done with my first draft, then I will make another video talking about my editing process to get into the next couple of drafts. I might do a couple of just cozy writing blogs kind of thing, talking about how many words I've gotten, things like that. I'll see what I want to do. Let me know what you think about this change in the story, anything else you'd like to know, and so thank you for coming along on my writing journey. I know I've sort of taken a left turn here, but I think I've really focused in on the story I want to write now. So it took a little bit, but I think we've got there. I'll see you again once I'm done with my first draft. And as always, I hope you all have a wonderful day. Oh, I'm itchy. Whoa, that was my shoulder. I'm losing my energy. I had too much coffee and now I'm crashing. Yay. Content.